Hey, you, Darren here. Today I'm discussing emotional affairs, what they are, and how to know if your partner is involved in one. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video or if it helped you in any way. Or I guess if you hated it, you could tell me that too, but I would prefer you didn't. All right, first red flag on our emotional affair, bullfighting ring, increased secrecy. Look, everyone deserves their privacy, but when your partner starts acting like they're guarding the nuclear launch codes for their nightly Wordle score, it might be time to raise an eyebrow. Suddenly, their phone is their new best friend, and they're treating it like a fragile, explosive device every time you walk into the room. Oh, this old thing, just texting the plumber about plumbing things? You wouldn't be interested? Yeah, okay, and I'm the Queen of England. This secrecy can manifest in different ways. Maybe they're super evasive about their whereabouts, or they've developed a sudden passion for deleting their browser history. Whatever the method, the message is clear. They're hiding something, and let's be honest, it's probably not their top secret recipe for the world's best tuna casserole. So, if your partner starts acting like they're in a spy thriller, complete with coded messages and disappearing ink, it might be time to channel your inner Sherlock and investigate. Just, maybe skip the deerstalker hat and pipe unless you know you can pull it off. Remember that warm, fuzzy feeling you used to get when you and your partner would just hang out, talk about your day, and generally enjoy each other's company? Yeah, well, emotional distance is like the opposite of that. It's like someone replaced your emotional connection with a giant, echoing void, and now you're just shouting into the abyss, hoping for an echo of your former intimacy. Spoiler alert, the abyss rarely texts back. You try to connect, to reach out and bridge the gap, but it's like trying to hug a brick wall. They're physically present, sure, but emotionally they might as well be on a different planet. This emotional distance can be incredibly isolating, like being stranded on a desert island with only a volleyball for company. This emotional disconnect can be a sign that your partner is investing their emotional energy elsewhere. They're sharing their thoughts, their feelings, their hopes and dreams with someone else, leaving you with the emotional leftovers. So, if you find yourself constantly feeling like you're shouting into the void, it's time to have a serious conversation with your partner. Okay, let's talk about communication. It's the cornerstone of any good relationship, right? But when it comes to emotional affairs, communication can be a double-edged sword because while healthy couples communicate openly and honestly, those engaged in emotional affairs tend to communicate differently. Think of it as the difference between a leisurely stroll in the park and a frantic sprint through a maze while dodging lasers. They're glued to their phone. They jump every time it vibrates like a live grenade they're desperately trying to disarm. And the worst part, you're kept in the dark. They're incredibly cagey about who they're talking to and what they're talking about. So if your partner's phone has become an extension of their hand and their communication with you has dwindled to grunts and shrugs, it's time to have a conversation. Now, a little healthy competition never hurt anyone, right? But when your partner starts holding you up to the impossibly high standards of their emotional affair partner, it can feel like you're constantly failing some invisible test. Suddenly, everything you do is being compared, analyzed, and found wanting. It's like living with a walking, talking Yelp review, and the review is always 3 stars. Could be better, especially in the emotional support and spontaneity departments. They might not come right out and say it, but their subtle or not so subtle digs and backhanded compliments speak volumes. This constant comparison can be incredibly damaging to your self-esteem. It's like they're holding up a funhouse mirror to your relationship, distorting everything and making you question your worth. You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you for who you are, flaws and all, not someone who's constantly comparing you to an idealized version of someone else. Remember those carefree days when you and your partner could talk about anything without it devolving into a heated debate? Yeah, those days might be gone. Because when someone's feeling guilty or defensive about an emotional affair, even the most innocuous questions can be met with an impenetrable wall of defensiveness. It's like trying to have a rational conversation with a startled hedgehog, lots of prickly defensiveness. Very little actual communication. You try to bring up your concerns, to have an open and honest conversation about what's bothering you, but it's like walking through a minefield of emotional tripwires. Every question is met with a denial, Every concern is brushed aside, and every attempt at vulnerability is met with a swift verbal karate chop. This defensiveness stems from a place of fear. But here's the thing, walls might seem impenetrable, but they also trap you inside. We're all creatures of habit, right? We thrive on routine, on the predictability of our daily lives. So, when your partner starts making significant changes to their routine, it's only natural to sit up and take notice. Suddenly, they're working late nights, their gym schedule has become suspiciously flexible, and they've developed a newfound love for running errands at the most inconvenient times. These changes in routine are often orchestrated to create opportunities for contact with their emotional affair partner. They're carefully crafting their schedule to maximize their time with this other person, even if it means sacrificing time with you. Of course, not every change in routine is a sign of an emotional affair. People change, jobs change, life happens. But when these changes are coupled with other red flags, it's worth paying attention to. We all have a finite amount of emotional energy to expend each day, so when someone starts investing a significant amount of their emotional energy elsewhere, it's going to leave less energy for everything else. And where is all that emotional energy going, you ask? Well, if you're dealing with an emotional affair, chances are it's being channeled towards that other person. They're the ones receiving the benefit of your partner's emotional support, their empathy, their understanding, and while you're stuck with the emotional scraps, the tired sighs, and the distracted nods, it's like being served a plate of day-old bread while someone else is feasting on a five-course meal. Intimacy. It's the glue that holds relationships together, the spark that keeps the flame burning. So when intimacy starts to fade, it's like watching the foundation of your relationship crumble before your very eyes. This lack of intimacy can manifest in different ways. Maybe the physical intimacy has dwindled, replaced by awkward hugs and perfunctory pecks on the cheek, or maybe it's the emotional intimacy that's taken a nosedive. This decline in intimacy is often a sign that your partner's emotional needs are being met elsewhere, and all the while you're left feeling neglected, unwanted, and deeply alone. We all go above and beyond for the people we care about, right? It's part of what makes relationships so special. But when your partner starts showering someone else with the kind of attention and affection that used to be reserved for you, it's like being slapped in the face with a wet fish. Suddenly, they're going out of their way to do favors, offer support, and generally bend over backwards for this other person. They're showering them with gifts, compliments, and attention, while you're lucky to get a grunt and a half-hearted nod of acknowledgement. This special treatment is often a sign that your partner is emotionally invested in this other person. And while it might not be intentional, it's incredibly hurtful. Now this one's important. Deep down, in the depths of your gut, you have this little voice that whispers words of wisdom. It's the voice of intuition, of experience, of that little part of you that just knows when something's off. And when it comes to emotional affairs, that gut feeling is usually right. It's like having a built-in lie detector, except instead of flashing lights and blaring sirens, it just gives you this nagging sense of unease. You can try to ignore it, to push it down and pretend everything's fine. But like a persistent mosquito buzzing around your head, it's going to keep coming back until you finally pay attention. Because your gut feeling is trying to tell you something important. So there you have it, the signs of an emotional affair laid out for you in all their messy, complicated glory. Remember, emotional affairs thrive in the shadows, feeding off secrecy and unspoken anxieties. The first step is acknowledging the possibility, no matter how uncomfortable it might feel. Talk to your partner, and share your concerns openly and honestly, and listen to their perspective, even if it's difficult to hear. Communication, that old chestnut, is key.